Hello lovelies, welcome to my channel. So in today's video I'll be showing you how to achieve this beautiful gown right on the screen, and I made use of an Ankara print, my lining, and a black material which is crepe and is not stretchy. So I'll start by marking 3/4 of an inch that will serve as my shoulder line. So after marking all of that point, I'll just go ahead and use my ruler and connect all of that points to a straight line. And once I'm done with this, I'm going to divide my shoulder of 15 inches into 2 and I have 7.5, and I'll just mark it there. And after marking that point, I'll go ahead to mark my armhole depth of 8 inches, and which I just marked there. So I'm going to connect from my shoulder line to my armhole depth. And that is just it, and I'm just trying to connect that line to meet the other line. And after that, I'm going to divide this my armhole into 2, and that is 4 inches that I'll be having, and I'm just going to mark my 4 inches at that point. And from at that point to, I'm going to come in by 1/2 inch. And after marking all of that, I'm going to divide my bust circumference of 38 inches into 4, and I have 9.5 inches, and I just mark that point there. And I'll go ahead using my curve drill to connect from my shoulder line to the 1/2 inch which I came in by, all to my chest line. So after marking that, I'm going to consider my neck width of 3 inches here, and I'm just going to mark it there. I'll go ahead as well to mark out my bust point. That's from my shoulder to my nipple. That's called bust point, and I just marked it there. And after marking it, I'm going to mark it both ways, and I'll go ahead as well to mark my under bust, from my shoulder to my under bust. And I'll go ahead as well to mark from my shoulder to my half length, or my waistline, which is 15 inches. So I'm just going to mark this at both sides. So now after this, I'll just go ahead and mark my hip length of 24 inches. My hip length of 24 inches, and I'll do same by marking it at both sides. So when I'm done marking all of these points, I'm going to go ahead to use my straight ruler to connect all these points. So after that, I just went ahead to label all these lines. Please pardon me, I had no idea that this was very faint until I started watching this video. I would have actually used a marker, but regardless of that, I hope you understand what all these lines is. So I went ahead to divide my nipple to nipple measurements, and I went ahead to mark it there, and I have 3.5 inches because I actually have a nipple of 7 inches. So after marking that 3.5 inches on all of these lines, I'll go ahead to use my ruler to connect all of these lines together. And after that, I'll just come to my waistline, which is where my hand is, that point, and I'm going to come out by 1/2 inch at both sides. And after that, I'll place my tape on my waistline, and I'm just going to go up by 5 inches, and I'm just going to mark the point where I have my 5 inches upwards. And as well, I'll come down from my waistline. I'm going to mark 6 inches downward, and after this, I'm just going to connect the way these lines are showing like this. I'm just going to connect like this. And after connecting, I'll just go ahead as well to extend all those lines very well. So after all of that, I'm going to consider my neck depth here. So this is all left for you to determine. I don't really want my cleavage to be showing, so I went ahead to mark a neck depth of 8 inches. Okay, so I just connected it to my neck width, and this dress actually has a V-shaped neckline, so that's what I'm trying to maintain here. So from that point, after marking that, I'm just going to connect with my curve rule like this, from that point to exactly under my bust, where my under bust line stopped. That's exactly where I'm going to connect this to. If you watch very well, you understand what I mean, right? So I'll go ahead to divide my waistline of 33 inches into 2. I marked it there, and my bust line, which I already divided earlier on, I'm just going to connect it to my waistline. So after connecting this, I'll go ahead as well to divide my hip of 42 inches into 4, and I just mark whatever I got there using my curved rule. I am just going to connect from my waistline to my hip line. And that's just it for this part, and I'll go ahead now to extend this because of the V shape which is in front of this dress. So I went ahead to mark 8 inches from my waistline. I went ahead to mark 8 inches, and I'm using my ruler now to extend the line. So I'm just going to bring it down from that line from my hip down to this line, which is actually my acting as my full length now actually. So I have done this, and from my waistline I'm going to come down by 3 inches from my waistline. You can come down by 4 or 2 inches, but I came down by 3 inches, and I wanted to connect this to that last line which I made, but I had a reconsideration because it was actually too long, so I had to reduce this to 6 inches, but I still maintained my 3 inches from my waistline down. I hope you understand. So the only part I claimed was the initial line I drew before. You understand what I mean? So from that 3 inches which I came down by from my waistline, I'm just going to connect straight like this all through to that line which I marked again. So this is basically it, and after doing all of this, I'll go ahead now to impute my okay, sorry, before that, please, I'm sorry, before that, just come to your underbust, and I'm going to mark half of an inch because I actually want this dress to get to under my bust. I hope you understand. So just connect this way. You can still maintain the under bust if you like, but I just decided to come down by half an inch. You can still go up by half of an inch. It's all about preference, okay? So you can still maintain the under bust where your yoke will stop. I hope you understand. So after all of this, I went ahead to impute all my sewing allowance of 1.5 inches all the way to where this dress stopped. So after that, now I went up at that point by half of an inch, and I just slightly connected it to my armhole part to form my shoulder slants, which I haven't taken. So after all of this, I'm done. I'm just going to go ahead to cut out all of this. Next time, I think I should use a marker for this because it's actually looking a bit fake. So I'm cutting for the armhole. So for that point, you know that point, right? I'm just cutting for this point. For this point now, that's my under bust. Yeah, and as you can see, that part I labeled it my yoke, and I'm just going to get the middle of my yoke. That's for the front bodice, and I'm just going to connect it to that my initial dart because I'm trying to slash this open, and because I'm going to gather this yoke part a bit. So after that, I'm just going to open this up. I'm just going to open this up, and I'm going to spread it with at least 3 inches. So, and I'm done with the front part of this dress, so I moved over to the back part, and here you can see I'm just marking my zipper allowance of 1 inch. So after this, I'll just use my ruler and connect all of these points which I made into a straight line. So I just went ahead to place my front yoke on top of this my back piece, and I'll go ahead now to use my office pin to pin this down so it doesn't move. There's not much to do when all I can. So now after pinning all of this, I just came to the neck part, and I came down by 4 inches, which should be serving as my neck depth for the back. I don't want to maintain the same neck depth with the front, and I went ahead to mark the neck width, and I made a point there. I want this to be a round neckline for the back, so I just left it there. I just made a point and left it there. So the next thing I did was to determine where my yoke stopped, which was right under my bust, and that was that line I extended to my zipper allowance, so that by the time I remove these front bodies, I'll be able to detect where my yoke will be starting for the back. I hope you understand. So I went ahead to cut out all of these parts because that's actually the only difference with the back and the front, the zipper allowance and the neck. and the neckline. That's just the only thing. So every other thing still remains the same. So after doing that, now I'll go ahead now to cut out for the other parts, my shoulder and the armhole. So once I'm done with this, now I'm just trying to get to that my waistline. Please, that line I made earlier on was my waistline. I went up by 5 inches and I just marked it there. So from that my waistline again, I'm going to come down by 5 inches and I'm going to connect that again, and I will also go down again by 8 inches. I'm trying to get our zip curve here with the butt curve, so it doesn't so that our zip area doesn't get pointy. I hope you understand. So I just labeled that pointy yoke, so you know that that line is not inclusive. I marked out that line initially because that's where my yoke stopped, so when I remove the front I'll be able to dictate that. So this is how you're going to connect this like this. From that point where we went up by 5 inches, you connect slightly to your waistline. From your waistline you connect back to the 5 inches we came down earlier by, and from that 5 inches you're going to connect like this to the 8 inches. I hope it's not confusing, right? So once you are done doing this, you're just going to cut out the exact way and shape all these lines went, please. So with this, you're going to avoid all those pointed whatever that comes at the back of your dress, and we are just going to cut this and cut out the whole of that zip area. So this is how yours should look. You don't have to be scared of anything. It's not actually going to take any of your dress allowance, okay? So just do it like this. When you're done, you're going to have very perfect slanty, beautiful flat zip at the back of your dress, okay? And also a butt cord at the butt. So I just went ahead to extend that line where my yoke stopped. You can actually make yours curved if you like, but I just wanted mine to be straight. So I went ahead now to perfect for my neckline for the back. Remember I said that initially, so I'll go ahead to cut that off, and that is it for the front and the back drafting of this beautiful dress. So I'll just go ahead now and spread this my front yoke. You can see where I wrote it by 3 inches. I'm just going to go ahead to slash it, to spread it, sorry, at least by 3 inches while cutting on my fabric. So this is it for the front and this is it for the back. So I'll go ahead now and draft on my actual fabric and my lining piece. So I've gone ahead to do all of that, and as you can see, I used my crepe for the down part, I used my African print for the yoke, and that is it. And I also use my African print for the ruffles. I can see my 3 inches spreading which I gave to this. So that is it. And while cutting, I added half of an inch all the way around of all of this dress, and here's for the back. And this is all for the drafting of this dress. And the second part of this dress, I'm actually going to show you how to sew this beautiful dress, and trust me, it came out so fine and nice. Please do watch the next video, and trust me, you're definitely going to love it, because this dress actually came out very beautiful. I've cut out everything but my lining piece and all of that. Thank you for watching. Please do ensure you watch the second part of this video. I had to slash it into two because it's actually long. And thank you to all my subscribers, and if you haven't subscribed yet, please kindly do so. Till then, see you on the same channel. Bye.